is going to engage that lateral head of your shoulder. There are 3 heads, so you have your posterior, anterior, and lateral. Anterior, you're usually going to work from front movements, your front raises. Rear, you're usually going to work from hitting back. You're going to have to squeeze back there. And lateral is anything to the side. But the nuance to this, so you're actually going to need to really position yourself to actually work that lateral head. So one thing I really recommend is it starts from the feet. So if you guys can see with my feet, I like to push out the legs like you're posing, like your legs should almost be flexed. Legs coming really strong like that. Posture myself a bit forward, chest up. Now from here, I'm not just lifting straight. You're gonna want some bend in that elbow, a slight bend I recommend. Just like when you guys are doing it on the machine that gets you to bend. This is a little bit extreme, but this is what you're gonna wanna mimic. So you're forward a bit, you're getting some degree of bend, and you're coming up like that. Now you notice if I teacup too much, I'm gonna put way too much pressure on that anterior head. Could cause issues, especially in that rotator cuff. You really want to avoid something like that. And you don't want to angle it back too far, or else you're gonna be working that posterior head. So for lateral, all it is balance. You need a nice equilibrium of just hitting that lateral head nice and straight. And that's what this is gonna look like. I got my arm out here. It's not supinated or pronated, just nice and straight. Just coming up and squeezing that lateral head each time through the movement with a little bit of bend, getting a nice big contraction, really isolating and working that lateral head. So you're gonna come here, you're gonna lift up nice and equal sideways, down. Now you're not gonna go all the way to your hips, you wanna keep it under tension. I find that this is about the perfect range. You guys can gauge on that based off feel. So you're here. So what you're gonna do, it's gonna be very similar to a lateral raise. You're gonna squeeze your abs, squeeze your glutes, get a good center of core. You're gonna have your arms set straight. You're gonna raise up and squeeze that into your head. So what we don't wanna do is raise too high, where we're just gonna pop it up, put a lot of the tension on our trap. And we don't wanna not raise it high enough where we don't get a full contraction of that anterior head. So what that's gonna look like is your arms are pretty much dead straight. You're squeezing into your abs, raising right up to just about here. I like my hand just to be a little bit above that shoulder. I find that's a perfect place of contraction for me. Experiment with it and try squeezing that shoulder. Raise it up with control, come down with control where the shoulder's still engaged. I like to stop right here, raise it back up. Now if you're really tired and you wanna do full resets, you can. I like to keep tension on the muscle. So it's gonna look like this, super quick. It's not a super complicated one, you just wanna make sure you're executing it properly. So I'm raising up with some squeeze, coming down with control. I like to keep tension on that anterior head. Lift it up, squeeze, down. Up, squeeze.
So first of all, most important thing is obviously setup. So a lot of times, these things can go all the way down nice and low for people who have smaller legs, they go all the way up. For myself, I'm about 5'8". I usually put in the middle and find that as long as you can feel comfortable, plant your feet into the ground and get nice and tight. That's really important. Next up, the hard part is a lot of times there's so many different grips and it's tough to know which actually you should be choosing. So I really do recommend for the weight, starting lower, getting used to it, and building up from there. Leave your ego at the door for this because the shoulders are commonly injured within a lot of pressing movements and we want to avoid that. Okay, so next up, I always recommend starting with this grip first. It allows you to get a nice neutral grip. It's your strongest position. Get that back and head nice and flat against here. You don't want to be leaned all the way forward, pressing like this. It's very awkward. So back and head all the way here, core nice and tight, looking forward, and then just boom, all the way up, okay? Another thing is you always want to bring your arm all the way down to the point where it's just about touching there, but not going to be hitting. Then you'll be taking the momentum off the exercise. So to show you a couple reps, all the way up, down, up, down, okay? Once you've mastered that, I do recommend to be able to lift a little bit heavier and place a little bit more emphasis on the front of the shoulder to move out to one of these side grips, okay? Some of them can really mess up your shoulders, so you have to be careful and make sure that a lot of times your forearm, everything is in a straight line. You don't want it to be pushed out like this. You don't want to have to bend it backwards. Just a nice straight line with your elbows and your wrists fully in line, and your shoulders, you want to make sure that your elbows aren't like pointed backwards. A lot of times when you're pressing like this, it's going to put too much stress on your shoulders but by having your elbows tucked in, nice to your side, going like this, boom, this is how it's gonna look. It puts great emphasis on the shoulder in a nice, safe position, and you'll be good to go. Transition.
So first and foremost, you can do this standing or seated. As you can see here, I'm doing it seated, I'm doing it standing. This is very much so based on preference. I'm pretty lanky, and honestly, I kind of like doing seated. I find when I'm standing, I'm leaning all awkward and really kind of gets me off base and uncomfortable. So I much prefer the seated variant. You can go ahead and play with it and see which one works best for you. So first thing you want to do is grab a light pair of dumbbells. I'm using 8, and this is even a little aggressive. My gym doesn't have too small dumbbells, so I'd recommend starting off with maybe 3 or 5 pounds to get this movement going. So instead, it's all about that position. So I like my chest right parallel to the ground. As you can see, I have the dumbbells right to my side, my head's down, I'm flying straight out to the side. So a good little cue is to try to be in line with your shoulders and bring it towards your ears. So 1, 2, So first and foremost, when you guys are doing this exercise, you want to come here, keep your arms nice and straight, kind of posture yourself out and squeeze those glutes. Get those glutes and core tight, and what you're doing is you're physically pulling this portion that connects to the cable towards your face. So here you'll notice this is a face pull. This is not a face pull. Here I'm working my biceps, I'm not actually engaging my rear delts. But by way of pulling to my face, keeping my elbow higher than my ears, I'm actually going to engage my rear delt. So that's going to go ahead and look like this.